emotions are still running high. After the shooting in front of CVS, close family friends of Kimari Childress say the family is distraught, and they want to know why.
It's tough, for real, when it hits home like this and it hits close like this.
Kimari Childress is running for her life. Her feet pound against the CVS parking lot pavement. The pharmacy doors, where she works, where she's safe, are just steps away. She can see them getting closer. Behind her, 6 gunshots still echo in the February air. She almost makes it. One bullet finds its target 3 feet from safety. The 17-year-old collapses on the asphalt where she's parked her car hundreds of times before. Her blood pools in the parking lot where she built her dreams of becoming a pharmacist. Rewind 72 hours. Kimari is scrolling through Facebook, screenshot in hand. Her ex-boyfriend's desperate text messages stare back at her. "You look so good. You so bad, man. Just be mine again." She hits post, tags his name, watches the laughing emojis flood in. She thinks she's just embarrassing Trey Marion Jones. She has no idea she's creating a killer. Ladies, if you've ever posted screenshots of your ex's pathetic messages, this story will change everything. If someone won't stop texting you after a breakup, hit subscribe right now, because what happened to Kimari could happen to you. How does a Facebook post turn into a murder scene? How does online mockery become a death sentence? And why did a 20-year-old man choose execution over embarrassment? You're about to discover how social media humiliation created a monster who decided that if he couldn't have Kimari Childress, nobody could. Welcome to True Crime Tales HQ. If you're new here, we dive deep into cases that matter, examining not just what happened, but why it happened and how we can prevent it from happening again. Before we continue, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our latest investigations. Most importantly, share this video. These stories save lives when the right person sees them at the right time. Before we understand how everything went wrong, you need to know who Kimari Marie Childress really was. This wasn't just another tragic headline. This was a young woman with real dreams, real plans, and a future that stretched out before her like an open road. March 5th, 2006. That's when Kimari entered this world in Carbondale, Illinois. But it was Cape Girardeau, Missouri, where she truly blossomed. Raised by her mother Jessica Fox after losing her father Keyshawn, Kimari grew up in a home filled with love, laughter, and endless possibilities. December 2023 brought one of the proudest moments of Jessica's life. Kimari walked across that stage at Central Academy, diploma in hand, ready to take on the world. At just 17, she had already mapped out her future with the kind of clarity that would make adults twice her age envious. She wanted to become a licensed pharmacist, and she wasn't just dreaming about it. She was actively working toward it. That's what brought her to CVS Pharmacy in Cape Girardeau. While other teenagers were figuring out their next move, Kimari had already landed a position as a pharmacy technician. Jessica still remembers that first day. The way Kimari's face lit up with what she called her lottery smile. It wasn't just a job to Kimari. It was her stepping stone, her training ground, her first real taste of independence. But beyond her professional ambitions, Kimari was simply a joy to be around. She had this infectious energy that drew people to her. Photography wasn't just a hobby. It was her way of capturing the beauty she saw everywhere. She loved traveling, exploring new places, and creating memories with the people who mattered most. March 5th, 2024 was supposed to be special. Kimari would turn 18, officially becoming an adult, ready to take the next step in her pharmacy career. That birthday was circled on calendars, plans were being made, and excitement was building. What Kimari didn't know was that someone from her past couldn't accept that she was moving forward without him. Love at first sight. That's what everyone said about Kimari and Trey Marion Jones when they first got together. She was 17, full of dreams and laughter. He was 20, charming and attentive. Their relationship became the talk of Cape Girardeau, young love that seemed destined to last forever. Their social media told the story everyone wanted to believe. Constant photos of them together, stolen kisses, inside jokes, romantic date nights. Kamari's Instagram was filled with heart emojis and captions about her king. Trey Marion would comment on every single post, claiming his girl for the world to see. Friends described their connection as magnetic. They couldn't seem to get enough of each other. But what looked perfect on Instagram was hiding cracks that only became visible after it was too late. By early 2024, something had shifted. The frequent posts stopped. The lovey-dovey comments disappeared. Kamari began posting solo pictures again, focusing on her work at CVS and her future plans. She was moving forward, and for the first time in months, she seemed genuinely happy. The breakup hit Trey Marion differently. While Kamari was planning her next steps toward becoming a pharmacist, he was stuck in the past, unable to accept that their story was over. Friends later recalled how he would bring up Kamari in every conversation, constantly checking her social media, asking mutual friends about her activities. When Kamari started dating someone new, Kamani Rutherford, everything changed. Her smile returned, the genuine one her mother remembered from childhood. She was excited about this new chapter, posting pictures with her new boyfriend, sharing moments of joy that had been absent during the final months with Trey Marion. For Kamari, this new relationship represented freedom. She was 17, about to turn 18, with a job she loved and a future she was building. This new guy respected her ambitions, supported her dreams, and made her feel valued for who she was becoming. But Trey Marion saw each happy post as a personal attack. Every photo with her new boyfriend felt like a public rejection. The psychological impact was devastating. He had built his identity around being Kamari's boyfriend, and now she was thriving without him. The difference between love and control becomes clear in these moments. Love wants the other person to be happy, even if it means being happy without you. Control demands that if you can't have them, nobody can. Kamari had chosen happiness. Trey Marion had chosen obsession. And obsession, as we're about to see, has a way of turning deadly when mixed with public humiliation. February 2024. Kamari had moved on, but Trey Marion Jones hadn't gotten the message. His phone buzzed with desperate attempts to reconnect. "You look so good. You so bad, man. Just be mine again," he typed, his fingers heavy with hope and denial. Kamari's responses were polite but crystal clear. "Thank you," she replied, offering nothing more. No invitation back into her life. No second chances. Just the courtesy of acknowledgement before moving forward with her new relationship. But Trey Marion wouldn't stop. The messages kept coming, each one a reminder of what he'd lost and what he couldn't accept. Then came the screenshot that would seal both their fates. Instead of simply blocking him privately, Kamari made a choice that would haunt her family forever. She posted their private conversation on Facebook, complete with Trey Marion's name attached. Her caption made it clear who was behind the desperate pleas. The internet did what the internet does best. It attacked. Comment sections exploded with mockery. Laughing emojis flooded the post. Friends and strangers alike turned Trey Marion's heartbreak into entertainment. His private pain became a public spectacle. Kamari didn't stop there. Additional posts followed, each one throwing shade at her ex-boyfriend. What started as boundary setting had transformed into public humiliation. Here's what most people don't understand about rejection. Private hurt heals. Public humiliation festers. When someone's vulnerability becomes viral content, shame turns into rage. For men like Trey Marion, whose identity was tied to respect and control, being laughed at online felt like character assassination. Social media amplifies everything. A private breakup becomes public theater. A moment of weakness becomes permanent entertainment. The mockery doesn't disappear. It lives forever in screenshots, comments, and shared posts. Kamari was setting boundaries, but she was also creating an audience for Trey Marion's humiliation. Every laugh emoji was another nail in his wounded pride. For weeks, Trey Marion had been trying to win her back. Now, he was the punchline. Friends were seeing his desperate messages. Strangers were mocking his attempts at reconciliation. The transformation from heartbroken ex to potential threat was complete. Those around him might have noticed the shift. The way he talked about Kamari changed. The hurt in his voice hardened into something else. But who pays attention to a young man's wounded ego until it's too late? What Kamari didn't know was that Trey Marion wasn't planning to handle this embarrassment alone. He was already making plans that would end with her blood on the CVS parking lot. February 27, 2024. A Tuesday like any other. Kamari woke up with no idea it would be her last. She went through her usual routine, shower, breakfast, getting ready for another shift at CVS. Her mother, Jessica, watched her daughter gather her things, that familiar smile lighting up her face. "I'll see you tonight, Mom," Kamari said, grabbing her keys. Those would be the last words Jessica ever heard from her daughter. The CVS pharmacy on William Street was busy that afternoon. Kamari worked diligently, filling prescriptions and helping customers. She'd been there for just a few months, but everyone knew her, the bright teenager with big dreams. At 2:30 p.m., she clocked out. Her shift was over. She was ready to head home, maybe spend time with her new boyfriend Kamani, continue building the life she'd worked so hard to create. The red car pulled into the CVS parking lot at 2:35 p.m. Surveillance cameras mounted on the building captured every second of what happened next. Trey Marion Jones sat in the passenger seat, his face set with determination. Behind the wheel was Zamia Smith, and in the back seat sat 22-year-old Yannick Kane. This wasn't a spontaneous visit. The trio had come with a purpose. Kamari walked toward her car, keys in hand. She had no idea she was being watched. The red vehicle positioned itself strategically, blocking her path. This wasn't coincidence. This was calculated. Kamari reached her car and immediately realized she was trapped. The red vehicle had boxed her in, making it impossible for her to leave. Trey Marion stepped out of the passenger side, his movements deliberate and threatening. What words were exchanged between them? The surveillance footage captured their interaction, but no audio survived. Was it a final plea for reconciliation? A demand that she take him back? Or had Trey Marion moved beyond talking? The encounter lasted less than 2 minutes, but in those moments, years of relationship history collided with fresh humiliation and rage. Kamari's body language showed fear. She backed away, her hands raised defensively. Without warning, Trey Marion drew a weapon. The choice was made. There would be no more negotiation, no more attempts at reconciliation. He fired directly into Kamari's car. The gunshots echoed across the parking lot. Witnesses later said they heard at least 6 shots. The 17-year-old threw open her door, adrenaline flooding her system. She had seconds to act. Kamari ran. She sprinted toward the CVS entrance, toward safety, toward help. The pharmacy doors were just steps away. She could see them getting closer. Her feet pounded against the pavement. She was fast, but bullets travel faster. One round found his target. Kamari collapsed just feet from the entrance. The doors she'd walked through hundreds of times as an employee were now impossibly out of reach. She lay on the pavement, her life bleeding away in the place where she'd built her future. The violence wasn't contained to Kamari. A stray bullet crossed William Street, striking a 53-year-old construction worker who grabbed his hip in pain. What had started as a personal vendetta had now endangered innocent bystanders. Trey Marion and his accomplices didn't hesitate. They climbed back into the red car and sped away, leaving Kamari dying on the pavement. CVS employees who had worked alongside her for months rushed outside. They tried to help, tried to save the teenager they'd come to know and care about, but the wounds were too severe. Emergency responders arrived within minutes, but time had run out. Kamari Marie Childress was pronounced dead at the scene, just 3 feet from the workplace where she'd dreamed of building her career. The parking lot where she'd parked hundreds of times was now a crime scene. Her blood stained the pavement where she'd fallen. The community was stunned. Cape Girardeau wasn't used to this level of violence. But Trey Marion had made one critical mistake. Actually, his accomplice did, and it was so stupid, so unbelievable, that it cracked the case wide open in just minutes. 10 minutes after the shooting, with yellow tape cordoning off the crime scene and officers everywhere, surveillance cameras captured something extraordinary. A young woman approached the perimeter, ducked under the police tape, and calmly retrieved a cell phone from the ground near where Kamari had fallen. Then she walked away. This wasn't some random Good Samaritan. This was 22-year-old Yannick Kane, and that phone belonged to her. She had been sitting in that red car when Trey Marion Jones pulled the trigger. Now, with an active homicide investigation underway, she decided her phone was worth the risk. Cape Girardeau police didn't need CSI technology to crack this one. The surveillance footage was crystal clear. Within hours, they had identified Kane and brought her in for questioning. When confronted with the video evidence, she admitted everything. Yes, it was her phone. Yes, she had been in the red car. Yes, she knew exactly what had happened. But here's the kicker. Kane was already on probation for burglary and assault. Getting involved in this meant throwing away her freedom. Yet she chose to risk it all for a cell phone. With Kane in custody, police had their connection to the red car and the shooter. The search for Trey Marion Jones intensified. That evening around 8 p.m., officers spotted a vehicle they believed was connected to the case. When they attempted the traffic stop, the vehicle didn't pull over. Instead, it accelerated, leading police on a high-speed chase through Cape Girardeau's residential streets. The pursuit ended near North Pindwood Lane when the car doors flew open and 3 men jumped out, scattering into the night. Police set up a perimeter and began their search. Within hours, they had apprehended 2 of the 3 men. One was Zamia Smith, the driver. The other was Trey Marion Jones himself. The 20-year-old who had gunned down his ex-girlfriend was now in handcuffs. His brief life as a fugitive was over. The charges came swift and severe. Trey Marion Jones faced first-degree murder, armed criminal action, unlawful use of a weapon, and first-degree assault. Yannick Kane was charged with tampering with evidence. Zamia Smith faced charges for hindering prosecution and resisting arrest. The evidence was overwhelming. Multiple surveillance cameras had captured the shooting. Cell phone records would reveal any planning. Social media posts showed the motive. The 53-year-old construction worker who was hit by a stray bullet added additional charges to the case. But justice moved slowly, and for Kamari's family, the real battle was just beginning. March 5th should have been Celebration Day, Kamari's 18th birthday. Instead, Cape County Park South filled with mourners carrying yellow and black balloons. Her mother, Jessica Fox Tucker, stood before the crowd, voice breaking as she spoke about her daughter's infectious laugh and boundless dreams. She had this crazy big smile that could light up any room, Jessica told the gathering. That's how I want everyone to remember her, not as a victim, but as the bright, ambitious young woman she was. Kamari's best friends, Gabby Knupp and Jayana McClure, shared memories of growing up together in Cape Girardeau. They talked about sleepovers, graduation day, and Kamari's excitement about her first real job. These weren't just memories anymore, they were all that remained. The community refused to let Kamari's story end with her death. CVS released a statement calling her a bright young woman who cared about her patients, and the company provided counseling services for employees who had worked alongside her. 1 year later, on February 27, 2025, the same park filled again. Yellow smiley face balloons, Kamari's favorite, rose into the Missouri sky as friends and family marked the anniversary of a life cut short. Every time I saw her, she had this crazy big smile and a big laugh, Gabby upset through tears. Kamari just means so much to me. Jayana McClure added, me and Kamari, we grew into young ladies together. Everything reminds me of her. But beyond the tears and balloons, Kamari's death had shattered the illusion of safety in their small Missouri community. Cape Girardeau Mayor Stacy Kinder and Police Chief Wes Blair held press conferences, trying to reassure residents that this was an isolated incident. When you see a situation happen right in the center of town, in the middle of the day, that's very concerning to everyone, Mayor Kinder admitted. But she emphasized that Cape Girardeau had invested heavily in police technology and quick response capabilities. Chief Blair was more direct. We have police officers here that run to gunfire, but they run to take care of people too. The shooting was the second homicide in Cape Girardeau that week, leaving residents questioning their safety in what had always been considered a quiet, family-friendly town. For Jessica Fox Tucker, every court appearance became a pilgrimage of pain. She attended hearings with groups of family and friends, seeking to understand a legal system that seemed to move at a glacial pace, while her grief remained fresh and immediate. Just so that we have an understanding of what this means, Jessica said after one hearing. What are the steps to come next? What it could look like? We fully understand how the court system is going to work. But understanding the system and accepting its timeline are two different things. As the months dragged on, the family watched as justice remained just out of reach. When Trey Marion Jones first appeared before the judge, his demeanor was calm, almost detached. He entered his plea without hesitation, not guilty to first-degree murder and multiple felonies. The 20-year-old filed paperwork for a public defender, claiming he couldn't afford private counsel. His attorney immediately requested a change of venue, arguing that extensive media coverage would make finding an impartial jury impossible in Cape Girardeau. The judge denied the request. The case would remain in the local jurisdiction where Kamari had lived, worked, and died. While Jones maintained his innocence, his co-defendants took different paths. Faced with overwhelming evidence, including surveillance footage of her retrieving the phone from a crime scene, Yannick Kane withdrew her not guilty plea. She accepted responsibility for tampering with evidence, receiving a prison sentence that reflected both this crime and her previous convictions. Zamia Smith, the driver, also entered a guilty plea for his role in helping Jones escape and resisting arrest. But for the main defendant, justice moved with agonizing slowness. Jones's trial was scheduled for September 2024, nearly 2 years after Kamari's death. For Jessica Fox Tucker and her family, every passing day meant another sunrise without their daughter. The prosecution built their case methodically. The surveillance footage was damning. Multiple cameras had captured the red car's arrival, the confrontation, the shooting, and the attempted escape. Cell phone records revealed the planning behind the attack. The Facebook posts demonstrated motive. Legal experts noted that first-degree murder requires proving premeditation and deliberation. The prosecution had to show Jones planned Kamari's death beforehand, not just that he killed her in a moment of rage. The social media evidence could prove decisive. Those desperate text messages and public humiliation establishing the planning element prosecutors needed. Today, as this case potentially heads toward resolution, Kamari's story serves as a chilling reminder of how quickly digital drama can escalate to real-world violence. Her dream of becoming a pharmacist died with her on that February afternoon, but her memory continues to educate others about the warning signs of obsessive behavior, the persistent messages, the inability to accept rejection, the transformation from hurt to rage when private pain becomes public entertainment. Kamari Marie Childress was just 17 years old. She had a crazy big smile that lit up every room. She loved photography, family time, and building her future one prescription at a time. She should be 19 now, probably in pharmacy school, still lighting up rooms with that infectious laugh. Instead, she's a cautionary tale about the deadly intersection of social media, rejection, and male rage. Her mother, Jessica, continues to seek justice, attending every court hearing, demanding accountability for the senseless violence that stole her daughter's future. The community of Cape Girardeau continues to grapple with how such brutality could happen in broad daylight in their quiet town. If Kimari's story has touched your heart, share this video. Her memory deserves to live on, and other young women deserve to be warned about the dangers lurking behind obsessive love. Because sometimes, the person who can't let go won't stop until they destroy what they can't have. Rest in peace, Kimari Marie Childress. Your dreams mattered. Your life mattered. Your story will save others.
The apartment door crashed open. Augusta's mother stepped inside and immediately froze. There, in a pool of crimson blood, lay her daughter's mutilated body. The smell of death filled the luxury apartment, while outside, a gleaming Mercedes-Benz C300 sat parked, the birthday gift that had sealed Augusta's fate. She was living like a princess, but her prince was planning her murder. Have you ever ignored red flags because someone showered you with gifts? Augusta Ossitodian did. Private jets, shopping sprees, designer bags, Benjamin Best gave her everything money could buy. Their Instagram posts showed the perfect couple living their dream life. But behind those lavish vacations and expensive presents, a toxic relationship was destroying a young woman's life. When Benjamin couldn't control Augusta anymore, he did the unthinkable. Then he confessed his crime to the world through Instagram stories that shocked an entire nation. What made a loving boyfriend become a killer? The answer will chill you to the bone. If you've ever questioned whether money can buy love, this story will change everything. Hit subscribe because you won't want to miss how this unfolds, and what Benjamin did next will leave you speechless. Welcome to True Crime Tales HQ. If you're new here, we dive deep into cases that matter, examining not just what happened, but why it happened and how we can prevent it from happening again. Before we continue, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our latest investigations. Most importantly, share this video. These stories save lives when the right person sees them at the right time. This is the story of Augusta Ossitodian, a young woman whose fairy tale turned into Nigeria's most shocking murder case. And it all started with a dream that seemed too good to be true. Augusta Ossitodian was born on February 3, 2002, in the bustling heart of Lagos, Nigeria, a city where dreams collide with reality every single day. At just 21 years old, she had already carved out her own slice of success, commanding the attention of over 100,000 Instagram followers who hung on every post. She wasn't just another pretty face on social media. Augusta was a student at Leeds City University, brilliantly balancing her academic pursuits with her growing influence in Nigeria's fashion scene. Her relationship with her mother, Cordelia, was extraordinary. They weren't just mother and daughter, they were genuine best friends who shared everything. Augusta would call her mom about outfit choices, relationship advice, and her biggest dreams. She was sweet, intelligent, and had this magnetic personality that drew people to her like moths to a flame. Augusta wasn't just posting for likes. She had real ambitions. She dreamed of building a fashion empire, of becoming a household name across West Africa, of living the kind of life that would make her family proud. Every carefully curated post was a step toward that vision, a young entrepreneur building her brand in the digital age. Her Instagram feed told the story of a woman on the rise. Designer outfits, glamorous events, behind-the-scenes glimpses of her university life. She embodied everything her generation aspired to be: successful, independent, and unapologetically ambitious. But success attracts attention, and sometimes that attention comes from the wrong person. Drop a heart in the comments if you've ever fallen for someone who seemed too good to be true, because what happened next would change Augusta's life forever. Then came Benjamin Best. At 26, he seemed like everything a young woman could want: successful, charming, and completely captivated by Augusta's light. When these two social media powerhouses connected, it felt like destiny had aligned. But destiny, as Augusta would tragically learn, isn't always kind. Benjamin Best wasn't just another Lagos guy trying to impress a beautiful woman. At 26, he was a successful blockchain developer and cryptocurrency enthusiast who understood the digital world Augusta lived in. His Instagram handle, @Killaboy, had its own massive following. When these two social media powerhouses connected, it felt like the universe had aligned. Their chemistry was instant and electric. Benjamin didn't just date Augusta, he worshipped her. Every photo they posted together screamed couple goals to their combined hundreds of thousands of followers. They became Lagos's most enviable pair, the kind of couple that made other women whisper, "I want what they have." Benjamin spared no expense when it came to Augusta. Private jets whisked them away to romantic destinations across Africa. He took her on shopping sprees through Lagos's most exclusive boutiques, where money seemed to be no object. They dined at the finest restaurants, where Benjamin would order the most expensive items on the menu just to see Augusta smile. Their nights were spent at the hottest clubs in Lagos, where they commanded VIP sections and turned heads wherever they went. Augusta glowed in every photo, her happiness radiating through the screen to followers who lived vicariously through her glamorous life. But the ultimate symbol of his devotion came on Augusta's birthday, a brand new Mercedes-Benz C300. The gleaming luxury car represented everything their relationship had become: beautiful, expensive, and absolutely perfect for Instagram. Every post painted their love story as a modern fairy tale. Benjamin's captions were poetry. "My queen deserves the world. Anything for my princess. She's my everything." Augusta's followers ate it up, flooding the comments with heart-eye emojis and marriage predictions. But perfection, especially the kind displayed on social media, often masks a very different reality. What looked like unconditional love was actually the beginning of something far more dangerous: a carefully constructed prison made of designer gifts and public displays of affection. Augusta thought she had found her prince. She had no idea she was dating her executioner, and the warning signs were already beginning to show.
Benjamin Best was slowly tightening his grip around Augusta's world, and the first signs appeared subtly. Benjamin would question Augusta about her male followers on Instagram. "Who is this guy commenting on your photos?" he'd ask, his voice carrying an edge that made her stomach flutter with unease. What started as playful jealousy gradually transformed into interrogations about her whereabouts, her friends, even her family conversations. Augusta's closest friends began noticing changes. She'd cancel plans at the last minute, claiming Benjamin had surprised her with another lavish date. Her responses to group chats became shorter, less frequent. When they did see her, she seemed distracted, constantly checking her phone for his messages. "I need to know you're safe," Benjamin would text her hourly. "Send me a photo so I know where you are." Augusta mistook this obsessive monitoring for love. She told herself that a man who cared this much, who spent this much money on her, couldn't possibly be anything but devoted. The cryptocurrency world Benjamin inhabited was ruthless and volatile. Fortunes vanished overnight. The pressure to maintain his image as a successful blockchain developer was crushing him. When his investments failed, when deals collapsed, Augusta became his emotional target. He'd explode over minor issues, a late response to his text, a photo she posted without his approval, even her natural smile seeming too bright for other men. After each outburst, Benjamin would flood Augusta with apologies and expensive gifts. A new handbag after he screamed at her for talking to a classmate. Diamond earrings following a night where he'd grabbed her arm too tightly. Augusta began walking on eggshells, analyzing every word before speaking, every outfit before wearing it. The cycle was intoxicating and destructive. Benjamin would create tension through criticism and control, explode in anger, then shower her with remorse and luxury. Psychological experts recognized this pattern immediately. Abusers weaponize generosity to create dependency. Every gift becomes a chain, every favor a debt. The victim begins believing they owe their abuser gratitude, even for basic kindness. Benjamin began isolating Augusta systematically. He'd create conflicts with her friends, claiming they were jealous of their relationship. He'd suggest she skip family gatherings because he had something special planned. Slowly, Augusta's world was shrinking to just him and the golden cage he'd constructed around her. And the walls were closing in fast. The phone rang at 2:47 p.m. on that Tuesday afternoon. Cordelia Asadian answered, expecting her daughter's usual cheerful voice. Instead, she heard something that made her blood run cold. "Mama, we had a fight." Augusta's voice trembled through the receiver. "Benjamin and we argued about something and I don't know what to do." Cordelia had heard her daughter upset before, but this was different. There was fear in Augusta's voice. Raw, genuine terror that no amount of designer bags or luxury vacations could mask. "What happened? Tell me everything," Cordelia pressed, her maternal instincts firing on all cylinders. Augusta's words came in fragments. The fight had been intense. Benjamin had become someone she didn't recognize. She was scared to go home, scared to stay. The details were vague, but the emotion was crystal clear. Her daughter was in danger. "I'll call him," Cordelia promised. "Let me talk to Benjamin. We can fix this." But Augusta's response chilled her to the bone. "Mama, I don't think this can be fixed." The line went dead. For the next 48 hours, Cordelia lived in a mother's worst nightmare. Her calls to Augusta went straight to voicemail. Text messages remained unread. The silence stretched on like a void, each hour feeling like an eternity. She called Benjamin's phone dozens of times. When he finally answered on July 12th, his voice was cold, mechanical. "She's fine," he said curtly. "Just give her some space." But Cordelia knew her daughter. Augusta never went this long without contact. Not even during their worst teenage arguments had she stayed silent for more than a few hours. By July 13th, panic had fully set in. Cordelia reached out to Augusta's roommate, Peace, who'd been friends with Augusta since their first year at Lead City University. "I haven't heard from her either," she admitted, her own concern evident. "She was supposed to meet me for lunch yesterday, but she never showed." The two women made a decision that would change everything. They would go to Benjamin's apartment in Oral Estate, Ajah. If Augusta was there, they would bring her home. If she wasn't, they didn't want to think about that possibility. The Mercedes-Benz C300 sat in the parking space like a monument to broken promises. Augusta's birthday gift gleamed under the Lagos sun, looking exactly as it had when Benjamin had surprised her with it just months earlier. "Her car is here," Peace whispered, stating the obvious. "So where is she?" Cordelia approached the apartment building with legs that felt like lead. Something was wrong. Everything was wrong. The building was too quiet, too still for a Tuesday afternoon. They climbed the stairs to Benjamin's second-floor apartment. The hallway smelled of cooking spices and laundry detergent, normal, everyday scents that felt out of place in this moment of mounting dread. Cordelia knocked on the door. No answer. She knocked again, harder this time. "Benjamin, Augusta, open up!" Nothing. Peace tried the handle. Locked. Maybe they went out together, Peace suggested weakly, though neither woman believed it. Without her car? Cordelia's voice cracked. Augusta would never leave her car here and go somewhere else. Never. The Lagos State Police arrived within 20 minutes of Cordelia's frantic call. Officer Adebayo, a seasoned investigator with the Homicide Division, took one look at the worried mother and knew this wasn't a simple domestic dispute. "We're going to need to enter the premises," he informed the building security guard, who produced a master key with shaking hands. The lock turned with a soft click. The door opened. The smell hit them immediately. Thick, cloying, unmistakable. Officer Adebayo had encountered it countless times in his 15-year career, but it never got easier. "Ma'am, I need you to step back," he commanded, gently guiding Cordelia and Peace away from the doorway. What they found inside would make headlines across Nigeria and beyond. Augusta's body lay in the living room, her life stolen in the most brutal way imaginable. The violence was overwhelming. This wasn't a crime of passion or a moment of temporary madness. This was something far more calculated, far more vicious. Within hours, the apartment became a fortress of police tape and forensic equipment. The same social media platforms that had celebrated Augusta's luxury lifestyle now mourned her tragic end. But Benjamin Best was nowhere to be found, and he was about to shock the nation even further.
While Augusta's body lay decomposing in that Lagos apartment, Benjamin Best made a decision that would cement his place in Nigeria's criminal history. Instead of turning himself in, instead of showing genuine remorse, he chose to confess his crime on Instagram, turning murder into content. On July 17, 2023, Benjamin began posting a series of text stories that would be screenshot and shared millions of times across Africa. "I got into an argument with my girlfriend," he wrote, his words appearing in white text against a black background. "Which fight I mistakenly stabbed her and ran away out of fear. Mistakenly stabbed her." Those 3 words would haunt everyone who read them. You don't mistakenly stab someone. You don't mistakenly mutilate a body. You don't mistakenly destroy the person you claim to love. But Benjamin wasn't finished. Post after post continued to appear, each one more disturbing than the last. "I won't intend to end myself because I have lost the one I cherish so much," he wrote, somehow making himself the victim in his own confession. "I wanted to do the right thing and turn myself in. I will gladly die by paying with my life now." The manipulation was breathtaking. Here was a man who had just committed one of the most heinous crimes Nigeria had seen, and he was asking for sympathy. He claimed the argument was about something I'd rather not say in order to protect her image and respect for the dead, as if protecting Augusta's reputation after mutilating her body was somehow noble. The most chilling part? His attempt to rewrite the violence. None of her body parts went missing, he insisted, directly contradicting police reports. Nothing was intentional. We got into a fight, an argument which led to her carrying a knife. Now Augusta was supposedly the aggressor. The victim was suddenly wielding the weapon. The lies were as calculated as they were cruel. Within hours, Nigeria exploded. Hashtag Justice for Augusta began trending across Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Screenshots of Benjamin's confession spread faster than wildfire. Celebrities, influencers, and ordinary citizens shared their outrage. The audacity of confessing to murder on social media while painting yourself as the victim was unprecedented. But while Nigeria raged over his words, Benjamin Best was already executing his escape plan. The confession wasn't just an admission, it was a distraction. Benjamin Best knew he had minutes, maybe hours, before every airport in Nigeria would have his face plastered across security monitors. The Instagram confession had sealed his fate. He was now the most wanted man in West Africa. But Benjamin had one advantage: money, and lots of it. $25,000. That's what it cost to disappear completely. Benjamin contacted underground networks that specialized in creating new identities for those willing to pay the price. Within 48 hours of Augusta's body being discovered, Benjamin Best ceased to exist on paper. Enter Kanu Princeton Samuel, a Sierra Leonean citizen with a pristine passport, clean background, and no criminal record. The transformation was meticulous. New documents, new backstory, new life. Benjamin had studied the process of identity theft for months, using his cryptocurrency connections to fund the operation through untraceable transactions. The journey to Sierra Leone wasn't direct. He traveled through multiple West African countries using cash-only transactions and avoiding major cities. He understood that his social media presence had made him recognizable, so he altered his appearance, different hairstyle, facial hair, even changing his walk and mannerisms. In Freetown, Sierra Leone's capital, Benjamin established himself as a quiet businessman. He rented a modest apartment, avoided social media entirely, and kept a low profile. The irony wasn't lost on him. The man who had lived for Instagram validation was now invisible by choice. For 3 months, Benjamin Best lived as a ghost. The Lagos State Police Command issued wanted notices across Nigeria. Interpol received bulletins with his photograph. Airport security heightened. Border crossings monitored. But Benjamin had vanished into thin air, leaving behind only his digital confession and Augusta's grieving family. The psychological pressure was immense. Benjamin's isolation was complete. No friends, no family contact, no social media presence. The cryptocurrency fortune that had funded his lavish lifestyle with Augusta now sustained his survival as a fugitive. Every news report about Augusta's case was a reminder of what he'd done. Every Justice for Augusta hashtag was another reason to stay hidden. But criminals, especially narcissistic ones, rarely stay invisible forever. October 2023 would bring what seemed like divine intervention for Augusta's family. Benjamin made a critical error that would change everything. A tip from an informant led Sierra Leonean authorities to a nightclub in Freetown. Benjamin had made a critical error. He attended a party where someone recognized him despite his disguise. The arrest was swift and coordinated. Sierra Leonean police, working with Nigerian authorities and Interpol, surrounded the venue on October 20th, 2023. Benjamin's fake identity as Kanu Princeton Samuel held up for exactly 12 hours before fingerprint analysis revealed the truth. Cordelia Osidian received the phone call she had prayed for. Her daughter's killer was in custody. The relief was overwhelming. Finally, justice seemed within reach. Nigerian authorities immediately began extradition proceedings, confident that Benjamin would face trial within weeks. Legal teams worked around the clock preparing the case. Evidence was compiled, witnesses were contacted, and court dates were scheduled. Augusta's family allowed themselves to hope that their nightmare was finally ending. But their hope was about to be shattered. November 15th, 2023 changed everything. A coordinated attack on the Sierra Leonean detention facility resulted in the escape of 17 prisoners, including Benjamin Best. The security breach was catastrophic. Understaffed guards, outdated equipment, and poor communication systems created the perfect storm. Benjamin's escape wasn't random. Intelligence later revealed that he maintained contact with criminal networks who orchestrated the breakout. The same money that had bought his new identity now purchased his freedom. Cordelia's world collapsed again. The phone call from authorities delivered news that felt like losing Augusta all over again. The family's hope transformed into rage and desperation. How could a maximum security facility allow such a failure? For the next 16 months, Benjamin Best became a ghost once more. Intelligence reports placed him in Ghana, Ivory Coast, Burkina Faso, and Guinea. He moved constantly, never staying in one location for more than a few weeks. The cryptocurrency fortune continued to sustain his survival. Anonymous social media accounts, believed to be Benjamin's, revealed a man consumed by paranoia and isolation. The social media star who once craved attention now feared recognition. By mid-2024, leads have dried up. False sightings wasted resources and manpower. Augusta's family watched their hopes fade with each passing month. But investigators never gave up, and technology was about to deliver the breakthrough they desperately needed.
January 2025 brought the breakthrough Augusta's family had prayed for. Intelligence agencies tracked Benjamin Best to Qatar, where he'd been living comfortably under yet another stolen identity. This time he called himself Te Abdul, carrying a fraudulent Ghanaian passport that had cost him thousands more. For months, Benjamin thought he'd outsmarted international law enforcement. He'd established a routine in Doha, frequenting upscale restaurants and maintaining the lavish lifestyle that had once impressed Augusta. But every digital footprint, every transaction, every moment of comfort was building the case against him. The breakthrough came through meticulous international cooperation. Nigerian authorities, working with Interpol and Qatari officials, had been monitoring financial transactions and social media activity. Benjamin's arrogance proved to be his weakness. He couldn't resist the spotlight entirely. February 2025, Qatari police, coordinating with international teams, surrounded Benjamin at a luxury hotel where he'd been staying. When confronted, Benjamin attempted to maintain his false identity as Te Abdul, presenting his fake Ghanaian passport with the same confidence he'd once shown Augusta's family. But technology doesn't lie. Biometric evidence exchanged between Interpol NCB Abuja and its counterpart in Doha confirmed his real identity. Facial recognition software and his own digital trail had already sealed his fate. His fingerprints matched those on file with Nigerian authorities. The cryptocurrency transactions he'd used to fund his escape had left an electronic trail that investigators followed across 3 continents. Qatar's legal system moved efficiently. Nigeria's formal extradition request arrived within days, supported by mountains of evidence. Benjamin's legal team attempted to fight the removal, claiming persecution and unsafe conditions. Their arguments fell on deaf ears. By April 19, 2025, Benjamin Best was aboard a flight to Lagos, escorted by international security personnel. The 2-year chase across West Africa and the Middle East had finally ended. The phone call Cordelia had been waiting for finally came. 2 years of sleepless nights, countless interviews with investigators, and the heartbreak of his previous escape had prepared her for disappointment. But this time was different. Through tears of relief and exhaustion, Augusta's mother learned that justice was finally within reach. The man who had taken her daughter's life, who had confessed and then fled, was coming home to face the consequences. Benjamin's arrival at Lagos Airport was a spectacle, but for Augusta's family, this wasn't celebration. It was the beginning of the justice Augusta deserved. Augusta Osedion was supposed to turn 23 this year. She should be graduating from Leeds City University, launching her fashion empire, maybe planning her future with someone who truly loved her. Instead, her name became a battle cry for women across Nigeria and beyond.
The Lagos State High Court moved swiftly. Benjamin Best, shackled and flanked by armed guards, faced Judge Adebayo Moreni in July 2025. The evidence was overwhelming. Augusta's DNA under his fingernails, his fingerprints on the murder weapon, apartment security footage, and his own Instagram confession that sealed his fate. The verdict came without surprise. Guilty of first-degree murder, life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. For Augusta's family, this wasn't celebration. It was exhaustion mixed with relief. "She can finally rest," Cordelia whispered through tears that weren't joy, but the release of 2 years of sleepless nights and unanswered questions. But Augusta's story transformed more than just one courtroom. Her case revolutionized how Nigeria handles domestic violence. Police departments across Lagos now require mandatory training on relationship violence. Social media platforms began monitoring confession posts more closely after Benjamin's unprecedented Instagram admission. The international cooperation between Nigeria, Sierra Leone, and Qatar set new precedents for fugitive captures. Augusta's story became required reading in law enforcement academies across West Africa. Most importantly, Augusta's tragedy opened eyes to the warning signs hidden behind Instagram perfection. The isolation disguised as devotion, the expensive gifts that came with invisible chains, the controlling behavior masked as protection. Augusta's mother became an advocate, teaching young women across Nigeria to trust their instincts. "If something feels wrong, it probably is," she tells audiences. "Love never demands you lose yourself." Every woman who now recognizes the signs, every friend who speaks up, every family who gets help, they're all part of Augusta's legacy. Her voice was silenced, but her story continues to save lives. Augusta Osedion should be alive today, celebrating her success and living her dreams. Instead, she became a symbol of the fight against domestic violence. Her story forces us to look beyond the perfect posts and expensive gifts to see the real person underneath.
Augusta Osedion should be alive today, celebrating her success and living her dreams. Instead, she became a symbol of the fight against domestic violence. Her story forces us to look beyond the perfect posts and expensive gifts to see the real person underneath. What will you do to honor her memory? Share this story. Help others recognize the signs, because Augusta's voice may be gone, but her message must be heard.
Cause this is my birthday, bitch. And I am 28. I will smack a big bitch. What that bitch wanna do, I'll send you right to the Lord.
At exactly midnight on June 25, 2023, a young mother raised a shot glass to her phone screen, toasting her 28th birthday with a radiant smile. "Happy birthday to me," she laughed, her voice filled with joy and anticipation for the year ahead. But what happens when a single hug, something as innocent as friends greeting each other, triggers a deadly chain of events that leaves 3 people dead, 6 wounded, and over 50 shots fired in the streets of Kansas City? This is the story of Jassity Strong, a woman who had overcome tremendous odds to build a beautiful life for her 2 children. A certified nursing assistant with dreams of becoming a registered nurse. A talented makeup artist whose work was gaining recognition across the city. A devoted mother who planned every detail of her future with meticulous care. She should have returned home that morning to celebrate with birthday cake and her children's laughter. Instead, within 5 hours of that midnight toast, she would be lying dead in a Kansas City street, her blood mixing with the asphalt where shell casings scattered like deadly confetti. 3 families destroyed. All because one man chose violence over walking away. All because a system designed to protect the public failed catastrophically, releasing a dangerous repeat offender on a pathetic $1,000 bond just 48 hours before he would commit mass murder. If stories like this matter to you, if you believe we need to understand these tragedies to prevent them, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell, because what you're about to hear will make you question everything about how we handle violent criminals in America. To understand the magnitude of what was lost that night, you need to know who Chastity Strong really was. This wasn't just another name in the headlines. This was a woman who had turned childhood trauma into unshakable determination. Born in 1995 in Kansas City, Missouri, Chastity entered a world where the deck was already stacked against her. Her mother, Tamika Jenkins, was barely 15 years old when she held her first baby. "We grew up together," Tamika would later reflect, and those words carry more weight than most people realize, two children really learning life's hardest lessons side by side. The early years were marked by instability and heartbreak. Chastity's biological father was taken from her through violence before she could form lasting memories of him. That loss, experiencing the brutal reality of street violence before she could even understand it, would shape her entire approach to life. But instead of becoming bitter, Chastity became fiercely protective. As the eldest of 5 siblings, she naturally fell into the role of second mother. Not because anyone asked her to, but because that's who she was at her core. While other teenagers worried about fitting in at school, Chastity was making sure her younger brothers and sisters had what they needed. Everyone who knew her described the same qualities: bubbly, forgiving, happy-go-lucky. But those simple words don't capture the depth of her character. Her family called her Jas, and that nickname became synonymous with reliability in their household. If someone needed help, financial, emotional, or otherwise, they called Jas. She never hesitated. Despite all the family responsibilities she carried, Chastity refused to let her dreams die. She completed her certified nursing assistant training, driven by a motivation that went far beyond just needing a job. Her grandmother's treatment in healthcare facilities had opened her eyes to how the elderly were often overlooked, dismissed, or treated without basic dignity. Working with elderly patients became more than employment for her, it was a mission. She would stay late to comfort residents who didn't get visitors. She learned their favorite songs and would hum them during difficult procedures. But the CNA certification was just the beginning. Her ultimate goal was becoming a registered nurse. What many people didn't know about Chastity was her artistic talent. She had taught herself makeup artistry, developing skills that were gaining serious recognition in Kansas City's beauty community. She had reached semi-finalist status for a Kansas City People's Choice Award. But her approach to makeup reflected her personality perfectly. She was known for doing free sessions for women who couldn't afford professional work. Prom season, job interviews, special occasions. Chastity understood that sometimes a little confidence boost could change everything for someone. By 2023, everything was finally coming together. The nursing career provided stability. The makeup business provided creativity and extra income. Her 2 children, 6-year-old Kirsten and 1-year-old Junior, had a mother who showed them every day that you could overcome anything with determination and love. "It's our turn, Mom. It's finally going to be good," she had recently told Tamika, discussing plans to rent a small house by the end of 2023. She had researched neighborhoods with good schools and safe playgrounds. The vision included a yard where her children could play and space for her makeup business to grow. June 25th was supposed to mark the beginning of this new chapter. But while Chastity was building her dreams, another man was building toward destruction. Now, let me tell you about the man who would destroy so many lives that night. Kevin Green wasn't some random stranger who just happened to be at that party. Born on July 7, 1996, this Kansas City native had been building toward this moment of violence for years, leaving a trail of red flags that the system repeatedly ignored. Like Chastity, Green grew up in Kansas City's challenging neighborhoods. But where she chose determination, he chose destruction. Where she became fiercely protective of her family, he became dangerously volatile toward everyone around him. By his teenage years, the warning signs were already apparent. Teachers reported aggressive outbursts over minor disagreements. He struggled to maintain friendships, often exploding when things didn't go his way. Green dropped out of high school without graduating, rejecting programs designed to help at-risk youth find better paths forward. Employment became another battleground where his volatile nature surfaced. Construction sites, fast food restaurants, warehouse work, he cycled through them all. Supervisors consistently reported the same issues: anger management problems, conflicts with coworkers, and an inability to accept authority. Each firing reinforced his belief that the world was against him. But Green's real problems began when the courts got involved. January 2019 marked his first major collision with law enforcement. Police arrested him for unlawful weapon possession, already carrying firearms illegally at age 22. But that wasn't all. The same arrest netted multiple drug charges, revealing someone already deep in Kansas City's street economy. The pattern that emerged was chilling. Green wasn't just breaking laws, he was escalating. Each arrest brought more serious charges. Each court appearance revealed someone growing bolder, more dangerous. May 2022 brought controlled substance violations. More drugs, more weapons, more violence. Here's what makes this even more disturbing: Green repeatedly failed to appear for court dates. He treated the legal system like a joke, ignoring summons and warrants as if consequences didn't apply to him. Court records paint a psychological profile that's genuinely frightening: documented history of escalating conflicts over trivial matters, exactly what would happen the night he encountered Cassidy. Poor impulse control wasn't just noted in his file, it was the central theme of every interaction with authority figures. Substance abuse compounded these issues. Green's drug use wasn't recreational, it was chronic, feeding both his dealing operation and his increasingly unstable mental state. Yet somehow, he kept getting released back onto Kansas City streets. Then came June 13, 2023, just 12 days before he would destroy multiple families. Green agreed to drive getaway for a shoplifting operation in Independence, Missouri. When police moved in, he did what he always did: he resisted arrest. Officers searching his vehicle found exactly what you'd expect: another illegal firearm. Here's where the system's failure becomes most obvious. Despite his extensive criminal history, despite the pattern of escalating violence, despite multiple previous weapons charges, authorities set his bond at just $1,000. $1,000. No GPS monitoring. No restrictions on his movements. No consideration of public safety. Green posted that pathetic bond on June 23, 2023. 48 hours later, 3 people would be dead because someone decided a repeat violent offender was worth only $1,000 risk. The night of June 25, Green arrived at Perfect Touch Auto Detail with his girlfriend, the same woman whose innocent hug would trigger his murderous rage. Witnesses later described his behavior throughout the evening as agitated, confrontational. He'd been drinking heavily, adding alcohol to his already volatile mix of personality disorders and criminal tendencies. Multiple opportunities existed to intervene before Green reached that fatal moment. The system had numerous chances to protect public safety. Instead, bureaucratic indifference and inadequate bond policies allowed a walking time bomb to remain free, counting down to an explosion that would shatter innocent lives. By the time the clock struck 4 a.m. on June 25, Perfect Touch Auto Detail had transformed into something entirely different from its daytime identity. Located on 57th Street and Prospect Avenue, this automotive repair shop shed its legitimate business facade once darkness fell, becoming an underground nightclub that operated without permits, licenses, or any form of official oversight. The building wasn't designed for entertainment. No emergency exits. No security personnel. No metal detectors or crowd control measures. Just a converted garage space where music pumped from makeshift speakers and alcohol flowed freely. These types of venues had become increasingly common in Kansas City, businesses that doubled as unofficial party spots, drawing crowds who wanted to celebrate beyond traditional bar closing times. On this particular night, the atmosphere inside was electric. Music filled the converted garage space as people danced and socialized. Drinks passed between friends. Laughter echoed off the concrete walls. Multiple people were marking special occasions. Birthdays seemed to be the theme of the evening. Cassidy moved through the crowd, radiant and happy, embracing the joy of turning 28. She mingled with friends, posed for photos, and lived fully in the moment of her special day. Nearby, 22-year-old Nico Manning was also celebrating his birthday, surrounded by family members who had come out to mark his milestone. The mood was festive. There was no indication that danger was building. But at exactly 4:30 a.m., everything changed with stunning speed. Surveillance cameras captured the sequence of events that would transform celebration into catastrophe. Near the entrance, a man wearing a white shirt, later identified as Kevin Green, approached a small group. His girlfriend had just exchanged a friendly hug with another woman, a simple gesture of greeting that happens thousands of times every day without incident. The woman's boyfriend, perhaps making a joke or perhaps feeling protective, made a comment to Green, "Watch your hands." It was the kind of remark that typically would generate a laugh, an eye roll, or at most a brief exchange of words before everyone moved on with their evening. Green's reaction was different. He stepped back, his expression changing. The alcohol in his system mixed dangerously with the rage that had been building inside him for years. Instead of laughing it off or responding with words, he walked away from the group. This should have been the end of it, a moment of tension diffused by distance and time to cool down. But Green didn't use that time to calm down. He sought out another man and engaged in a brief conversation. What was said between them remains unknown, but the result became clear when Green returned to where the initial exchange had occurred. This time, he wasn't empty-handed. The first shot rang out at 4:33 a.m. Green fired directly at the boyfriend who had made the comment, striking him in the back. The victim fell but survived the initial attack. For a split second, there might have been hope that this would be the extent of the violence. That hope vanished when another person in the crowd drew their own weapon in response. The situation escalated from an isolated shooting to a full-scale firefight in seconds. What followed defied description. More than 50 shots erupted in rapid succession. Bullets flying in every direction across the crowded space. The music cut out abruptly, replaced by screams and a thunderous crack of gunfire. People threw themselves to the ground, scrambled for cover behind cars, and ran desperately toward any exit they could find. Cars parked outside became riddled with bullet holes as the shooting expanded beyond the building itself. The asphalt outside turned into a war zone, with people caught in crossfire that seemed to come from multiple directions simultaneously. In the parking lot, 29-year-old Camden Brown fell among the vehicles where he had sought shelter, his life ending in a place that should have been safe. Nico Manning, who had been celebrating his 22nd birthday just moments before, collapsed outside the building. His father would later describe hearing what sounded like hundreds of gunshots and watching helplessly as his wife performed CPR on their son until paramedics arrived. And Jassity Strong, the birthday girl who had toasted her 28th year with such joy just hours earlier, was struck as she tried to flee. The young mother who had FaceTimed her own mother at midnight died in the street, her blood mixing with the Kansas City asphalt on the same calendar date she had entered the world. 6 other people sustained injuries but survived, including a woman who was shot in the hip and would later provide crucial identification of Green to investigators. The gunfire finally stopped, leaving behind a scene of devastation. Shell casings covered the ground like deadly confetti, a grotesque parody of the birthday celebration that should have been. Sirens began wailing across Kansas City as emergency responders raced toward the scene. In a bitter twist, Green himself had been wounded during the firefight he initiated, shot in the hand by return fire. While Jassity, Camden, and Nico lay dying in the street, their killer would seek medical treatment at a local hospital, the same medical attention that came too late for his victims. In less than 5 minutes, a simple hug had escalated into a massacre. 3 families would never be whole again. All because someone chose violence over walking away. The phone call came at 4:47 a.m. Tamika Jenkins had been sleeping peacefully, birthday decorations still hanging from the night before, when her world shattered completely. Her daughter, Jassity, the girl she'd raised since she was 15 herself, was gone. Shot down in a Kansas City street during what should have been the happiest night of the year. 6-year-old Kirsten woke up that morning expecting birthday cake for breakfast and her mother's warm hugs. Instead, she found her grandmother crying at the kitchen table, unable to explain why mommy wasn't coming home. The little girl kept asking the same question over and over, "Where's my mommy? When is she coming back?" Tamika had to tell her granddaughter that mommy had gone to heaven, watching Kirsten's face crumble as she tried to process words no 6-year-old should ever hear. 1-year-old Junior was too young to understand, but not too young to feel the absence. He kept reaching toward the door when he heard footsteps, expecting his mother's arms to lift him up. When strangers came instead, social workers, family members, people making arrangements, he would cry inconsolably, sensing something was terribly wrong in his small world. The custody situation became complicated immediately. Junior went to live with his father, separating the siblings during the most traumatic time of their young lives. Kirsten stayed with Tamika, who suddenly found herself raising a grieving child while drowning in her own overwhelming sorrow. At 43 years old, she was back to school pickups, bedtime stories, and playground visits, all while planning her daughter's funeral. "I will never have closure," Tamika told reporters through tears. "That was my oldest child, my first love. Losing the child you gave birth to is the worst pain any mother can endure." She'd already raised Chastity once, from teenage pregnancy through young womanhood. Now she was raising Kirsten, reliving motherhood while mourning the daughter who should have been there to do it herself. The Manning family faced identical heartbreak. Nico had been celebrating his birthday too, turning 22 with friends and family. His father heard the gunshots from blocks away, running toward the sound instead of away from it. By the time he reached his son, it was too late. His wife performed CPR in the street until paramedics arrived, refusing to give up hope. Camden Brown's family planned their third funeral that week, joining a heartbroken community struggling to understand how a simple celebration had become such a nightmare. The financial devastation hit immediately. Chastity's multiple jobs, her CNA work, her growing makeup business, had provided family stability. Funeral costs, legal fees, and sudden childcare expenses overwhelmed families already struggling with unthinkable grief. But the community's response was immediate and powerful. Within hours of the shooting, something remarkable began happening at 57th and Prospect Avenue, where shell casings had scattered across asphalt just days before. Kansas City residents started arriving with candles, flowers, and handwritten notes. The corner where 3 lives ended was becoming something sacred, a place where the community could process their collective shock and grief. Tamika watched from her car as strangers tied birthday balloons to the chain-link fence. Purple and gold streamers fluttered in the Missouri wind, creating a stark contrast against the industrial backdrop. Chalk messages covered the sidewalk, "Forever Jas." "Forever 28, written in careful cursive. "Gone too soon," scrolled in a child's handwriting. "We won't forget," in bold block letters. The funeral filled every seat in the chapel. Hundreds of people came dressed in Chastity's favorite colors, bright pinks and purples that reflected her vibrant personality. Photos rotated on screens throughout the service, Chastity in her nursing scrubs, laughing with her children, creating beautiful makeup looks for clients. The casket remained closed, the violence too severe for final goodbyes. Community members shared stories of her generosity, the free makeup sessions, the extra shifts she'd cover for coworkers, the way she'd cook for anyone who seemed hungry. But Tamika wasn't content to just mourn. 3 weeks after burying her daughter, she channeled her rage into action. Working with local advocacy groups, she launched what became known as JASA's Law, a petition pushing for stricter regulations around concealed weapons at public gatherings. The petition gained momentum quickly. Within 2 months, nearly 500 signatures had been collected, with supporters ranging from church groups to business owners who hosted events. Missouri state representatives began discussing legislative proposals that would require additional permits for carrying weapons into entertainment venues. These conversations arrived at a critical time for Kansas City. Chastity's death marked the 98th homicide of 2023, but the year was far from over. By December, that number would climb past 180, making it one of the deadliest years in the city's recent history. The grief remains fresh, but the activism continues. Every signature collected, every butterfly released, every candle lit represents a promise that Chastity Strong's name will mean more than just another statistic in Kansas City's violence epidemic. The Kansas City Police Department had dealt with nightclub shootings before, but nothing quite like the carnage at Perfect Touch Auto Detail. Within minutes of the first 911 call, detectives were securing the massive crime scene, and what they found would make this case remarkably straightforward to solve. The surveillance cameras had captured everything. Frame by frame, investigators watched Green in his distinctive white shirt approaching the group, the brief exchange of words, his departure, and most critically, his return with the weapon. The footage was so clear they could see his face, his movements, even the exact moment he decided to open fire. But the real breakthrough came from a wounded survivor who had taken a bullet while trying to flee. Despite her pain, she provided investigators with something invaluable. That's Kevin Green. I know him. He's the one who started shooting. While detectives processed the scene, Green made a critical mistake. Rather than laying low, he went to a local hospital seeking treatment for a gunshot wound to his hand, an injury from the very shooting he had initiated. When officers arrived 12 hours later, they found him in the emergency room. His arrest was swift, but his reaction was telling. Instead of remaining silent, Green immediately began constructing a narrative that would crumble under evidence. He claimed he was an innocent bystander caught in crossfire started by someone else. The problem? Investigators had already watched him on video initiating the violence. Within 24 hours, Jackson County prosecutors filed initial charges, first-degree assault and armed criminal action. But these barely scratched the surface. By June 27, prosecutor Jean Peters Baker announced upgraded charges reflecting the true scope: 2 counts of second-degree murder, 1 count of felony murder, and 3 counts of armed criminal action. Each murder charge carried 10 to 30 years to life. The felony murder charge proved particularly significant under Missouri law. Anyone who commits a dangerous felony resulting in death bears responsibility for all fatalities. Even if Green's bullets didn't strike every victim, his decision to open fire initiated the chain of events that claimed 3 lives. The contrast between Green's situations couldn't be more stark. The same man who walked free on a $1,000 bond now sat in detention without any possibility of bail. But here's what makes this case truly infuriating: this tragedy was entirely preventable. That $1,000 bond, the decision that directly led to 3 deaths. Green had been arrested just 12 days before with a weapon in his car, resisting arrest, with multiple previous weapons and drug charges dating back to 2019. Yet the court decided this repeat offender was worth just $1,000 to stay free. No ankle monitor. No check-ins. No restrictions. 48 hours later, he used that freedom to kill 3 people. The warning signs were everywhere. Court records showed escalating behavior. Previous arrests demonstrated his willingness to carry weapons. His criminal history predicted exactly what would happen. Yet every system designed to protect the public failed to connect these dots. Green had a scheduled court hearing for July 2023. A hearing he'd never attend as a free man because by then he'd be charged with triple homicide. The court system literally had him scheduled just weeks after the shooting. They knew he was a problem. They just didn't act in time. As of August 2025, no final verdict has been reached. Court backlogs extend timelines beyond what families hope for. Green's defense team portrays him as someone caught in crossfire rather than the instigator, but surveillance footage contradicts these claims at every turn. This case reveals how our justice system operates on reaction rather than prevention. We wait for tragedies, then scramble to respond. But Jassity, Camden, and Nico deserved protection before they became victims, not justice after they were already gone. Jassity's story is not just a tragedy, it's a stark reminder of how failures in our system can destroy lives in the most preventable ways. 3 families lost their loved ones that night, and one man's recklessness, enabled by a broken system, has forever changed their futures. But let's remember who was truly lost. Jassity Strong was more than a victim, she was a beacon of hope. A woman who turned childhood trauma into unwavering determination to help others. A mother who worked multiple jobs to build something beautiful for her children. A nursing assistant who stayed late to comfort elderly patients who didn't get visitors. A makeup artist who gave free sessions to women who needed confidence boosts they couldn't afford. Nico Manning was celebrating 22 years of life surrounded by family who adored him. Camden Brown was 29 years old with a lifetime of possibilities ahead of him. Their memories live on in ways that transcend tragedy. Every signature collected for JASA's law. Every safety protocol implemented at entertainment venues. Every conversation about bail reform and community violence prevention. 6-year-old Kirsten will grow up without her mother's guidance. 1-year-old Junior will never know the woman who worked multiple jobs to provide for his future. But Tamika Jenkins didn't just mourn, she organized, channeling her grief into action that could prevent other families from experiencing this nightmare. The question is, what will you do with this story? If you believe in justice, if you think change is needed in our system, subscribe and share this story. Tell us in the comments, should repeat violent offenders with multiple weapons charges be released on $1,000 bonds? How should after-hours venues be regulated? Do you think bail reform could have prevented this tragedy? Your voice matters. Your engagement helps these stories reach people who can make a difference, lawmakers, community leaders, and families who might find themselves in similar situations. The birthday balloons still tied to that chain-link fence flutter in the Kansas City wind, not just as symbols of grief, but as reminders that these lives mattered. That their stories demand action. That their deaths must mean something more than just another news cycle. Chastity Strong. Nico Manning. Camden Brown. Say their names. Remember their stories. Fight for the changes that could have saved them. Don't let this story end here. Make it count for something.